Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 2 of the anime series Death Parade. And this was really an interesting episode once again. Somewhat surprising to me as well, because I had kind of built up after seeing the first episode of the series, as well as the OVA was based on Death Billiards. I had kind of built this preconception in my mind that this was probably what we were going to get every single episode, in that Decim would be there to judge these souls who are, just newly departed and coming down to see whether or not they can sort of either go on to heaven or hell, or in this case, as we find out, and I began to suspect it's more a level of reincarnation and the void, which is what we find out in this episode. And I have to say, I was actually pleasantly surprised that it went a different direction. One that I hoped it would eventually go. I didn't actually suspect it would go that, direction as soon as the second episode. That being to say, looking at Decim himself and the surrounding characters, we're introduced to a few characters in this episode, most notably Nonna, who seems to be, even though she describes herself as an arbiter, sort of right in line with Decim, I get the sense that she's kind of like his manager, that kind of situation. And we're also basically debuted to this nameless character as of yet, the assistant, we'll call her, or assistant in training kind of situation, who seems to wake up, right outside like Nonna's little, I guess, house or whatever, in this environment, whatever this environment is. I don't know if this is another realm exactly, or, what have you, but I mean, dealing with the idea of recently departed souls and, challenging them, and challenging the preconceptions they have about how their life went and the decisions they made and all that kind of stuff is very highly intriguing to me. But I was also, as I say, hoping we would get to know more of these characters, and it's somewhat befitting. Somebody had brought up on the episode 1 discussion, or the OVA discussion rather, that the opening, music and the opening imagery was kind of a big-time contrast to the depressing nature of the story and all that kind of stuff. And I did agree to a point, but I also felt that, well, surely we're going to get to know these characters. Mostly on display in the OP animation, what we're seeing are all these surrounding characters to Decim in this realm, in this environment. I'm assuming we're going to meet them more as the series unfolds and such like that. We already saw that there were other sort of bartender arbiters on the train at the beginning of this episode, as Nonna was taking this assistant character to Decim's place. The guy in the elevator and everything. So I'm assuming we're going to get to know these characters a bit more as well. I hope that this this show basically ends up being able to divide and keep the division between what they're showing as far as the souls that come in and encounter Decim and have to be challenged and everything like that, as well as the characters like Decim and those around him. I hope we have half and half of the story focus, that it doesn't just go one side or the other, because it was really compelling, those first couple of episodes, the OVA and the first episode of the series proper. And I would love to see more of that. I'd like to see more of getting in the minds and souls, sort of the memories, as is emphasized in this episode, of the dearly departed, of the newly departed, challenging them and finding out, the truth of what landed them there. I was very compelled by that whole aesthetic. And I'd like to see that continue, but I'm just as compelled with the characters that are going to be sort of doing this arbitration and doing this challenging Decim and so forth. Now, this whole episode, you're basically having what happened in the first episode explained to you through the eyes of this assistant character, who is, I guess, brand new to this environment as of this episode. And she's kind of like, by the end, relegated to the heart, if you will, because Decim has such a level of detachment that he can't necessarily process the impetus behind human emotions and the reason for humans making their sort of frail decisions based on the heart, based on emotions. And that's intriguing, because it's almost kind of like the Kirk Spock thing, from Star Trek, where Spock is the very logical. He's processing things almost as though a computer, is processing so much programming, and this is the logical course, and this is the way it should be, and this is the way what I've witnessed should, this is what it should amount to. Whereas you have the assistant now who was actually thinking and mulling over much more the heart and the motivations and the emotions behind why, in this case, calling back on the husband and wife from the first episode, why the wife would turn around and, make it seem as though she was cheating on the husband. We basically have this 1-2 punch of a shocking revelation, which I have to admit I was suspecting by the end of the first episode, but when they didn't have that revelation, come to the fore, I was like, oh, well, maybe she was really cheating on this guy, and she was that evil, and Decim had made the right decision. But I still had that inkling, a little bit of a suspicion that maybe at that last moment, she had become so scathing, and she had become so hateful and disdaining, and issuing forth this, negative nature of, yes, I did cheat, no, the child's not yours, all because she loved this guy. She genuinely loved him and wanted to save his soul. And this is what this assistant character brings forth. This is the understanding she too has had. And so it's that big time revelatory thing that, why I say Nona seems as though she's Decim's manager, because Decim suddenly starts to backpedal. Did I make the wrong decision? And Nona cuts him off before he can even complete that thought, grabbing him by, the throat, pulling him down to size and saying, you need to better think these things through. You need to utilize a better sort of processing of the emotional equivalent and everything like that, as much as I said this assistant character brought forth. And so by the end of it, we basically are left with, okay, new souls are going to be coming down. This assistant is going to be working in tandem with Decim and hopefully bringing a voice and a knowledge to the heart of these souls that are going to be deposited on Decim's doorstep, to have to fight, to have to, play for their lives or their souls, whether they'll be reincarnated or go into the void and be lost for all eternity. And it's absolutely fascinating because we're going to have newer characters in this Decim-related environment that we're going to be debuted to, as we see in the OP, and even the ending animation. I mean, both really just gave me this awesome vibe. Like, this show is going to be lively. It's not only going to be depressing, it's going to be intriguing and interesting and make you think, make you feel, but it doesn't have to be, a downward spiral every step of the way. It can still be really lively and fun. And these characters seem like they're going to be lively and fun and very interesting. And there's one last little thing at the very tail end where we basically have Nona talking about, I guess on the phone to Decim, that it's only like a 3-month period or something, or a 3-month trial event, something along those lines. And I'm wondering, does that mean Decim only has to do this for 3 months? Is he concerned when is his time of purgatory up? Is it that he's not sure he's comfortable with this assistant, and it's only going to be 3 months that he's going to have to, put up with her? I'm not entirely sure, but Nona definitely doesn't seem to be sweating it at the moment, and it's just going to make that much more intrigue if, in fact, Decim and this new assistant character are going to be butting heads and not maybe agreeing with his decisions, because that's what it's all about. They, as we see in this episode, they go over the memories of the newly departed as they're about to be deposited here to have to fight and fend off for their souls. And so you'd think that Decim and the Arbiters who have those memories in their minds would be very capable of making decisions, but they still lack that quotient of, these souls are still feeling emotions. They still believe they're alive, and so they're going to be acting not necessarily logically or rationally. They're going to be going by the seat of, their emotions. And so that's why this assistant character is so important to this framework. And like I say, if they end up butting heads because of that, that's just going to be that much more intriguing. So really excited by this episode, was intrigued by the sort of backpedaling a little bit and giving us the ins and outs in high detail, what was, all going on in the first episode, as well as bringing a whole newfound revelatory element to it by the end. And yeah, I can't wait to see where we go from here. So otherwise, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 2 of Death Parade. If you've seen it, highly recommend you check it out. If you haven't, I think this is going to be one of the standouts, series of this entire wave. And yeah, otherwise I hope you enjoyed the video and then find you well. And I'll catch you all later. Peace.